What is your body doing differently that you don't even notice until you stop drinking? Most people judge alcohol by how they feel while they're drinking, but the real effects don't show up that way. They build quietly, in the background. Over weeks and months, several systems in the body begin adjusting almost immediately every time alcohol is used regularly. But the scale of those adjustments is much harder to detect than most people realize. Understanding what changes when alcohol is removed reveals something important about how the brain and body silently recalibrate and why the difference only becomes clear once it stops. If nothing feels obviously wrong, what is actually changing? The brain is built to compare today to yesterday, not to how things felt months ago. When alcohol is used regularly, the brain slowly recalibrates around it. Sleep patterns shift, energy shifts, mood shifts, but each change is gradual, small, spread out over time. The brain doesn't flag these changes as problems. It simply adjusts its baseline and moves on. So instead of feeling like something is wrong, it starts to feel like normal. And that's where it becomes invisible. And this is the part most people miss. The brain doesn't announce these changes. There's no clear moment where something feels off, just small differences that build on each other. Slightly more fatigue, slightly more stress, slightly less motivation. Each shift is easy to explain away: a hard week, bad sleep, not eating well. The brain is excellent at finding reasons. What it doesn't do is compare the current state to what things felt like before alcohol became a regular presence. On their own, they don't stand out, but together, they create a new baseline. If someone is still sleeping through the night, what's actually the problem? Alcohol makes it easier to fall asleep. That part is real. But falling asleep and recovering during sleep are two completely different things. The brain moves through stages: deep sleep and REM sleep that handle memory consolidation, emotional processing, and physical recovery. Alcohol disrupts both. It suppresses REM sleep in the first half of the night and causes fragmented, lighter sleep in the second half. From the outside, the person slept 8 hours, woke up. The night looks complete, but the quality of what happened during those 8 hours is measurably different. The body sleeps, but doesn't fully recover. But here's where it gets interesting. Because the brain adapts, that lower quality sleep gradually becomes the new normal. The person stops comparing their current sleep to what restorative sleep actually felt like. Waking up slightly groggy, slightly flat, slightly less sharp becomes the expected starting point for every day. It doesn't feel like a problem, it just feels normal until something changes. Why does energy feel different without a clear reason? Energy isn't a single system, it's the combined output of sleep quality, stress regulation, and dopamine function all working together. Alcohol affects all three. Sleep becomes less restorative. The stress system runs slightly elevated. Dopamine, the chemical tied to motivation and drive, becomes less responsive over time. None of these changes feel dramatic on their own. Sleep is still happening. Stress isn't unbearable. Motivation is still present. But the system is running below its natural output, and the brain is recalibrated around that lower ceiling. None of it feels dramatic, but together, energy slowly declines. If alcohol relaxes the body in the moment, why does stress feel worse later? Alcohol works by enhancing GABA, a calming signal in the brain, while suppressing glutamate, which drives excitability. The result is temporary relaxation, reduced tension, a quieter nervous system, but the brain responds by compensating. It downregulates GABA receptors and increases glutamate activity to restore balance. When alcohol isn't present, those excitatory signals remain elevated, higher than they were before regular drinking began. The nervous system becomes more reactive, more sensitive to stress, quicker to feel tense or overwhelmed. And again, it doesn't feel like a change. It feels like how things are. The system becomes more reactive. Stress feels stronger even when nothing has changed. And this is where the shift happens. When alcohol is removed, the brain starts recalibrating again. The first system to respond is sleep. Within days, REM sleep begins to lengthen. Deep sleep stabilizes. The brain starts cycling through its natural recovery stages more completely. Energy follows not immediately, but gradually. As sleep improves, recovery improves. As recovery improves, the dopamine system starts to normalize. Mood stabilization takes longer. The nervous system doesn't reset overnight. But as GABA and glutamate levels rebalance, baseline reactivity begins to lower. The changes are quiet, incremental, easy to miss in the moment, but the difference feels surprising because it was never noticeable before. What actually feels different when someone stops? The most common changes show up in 4 areas: sleep quality, mental clarity, energy consistency, emotional stability. Sleep feels deeper, waking up feels easier. The grogginess that used to feel normal starts to fade. Thinking feels cleaner. Mental fog begins to lift. Energy becomes more even across the day without the dips that used to appear. Emotional responses feel less reactive. Stress becomes easier to manage. Small frustrations don't escalate the way they used to. None of this happens all at once, and it rarely feels dramatic in real time, but enough to feel that something is different. Why does this catch people off guard? Because the brain adapted slowly in both directions. The original shift toward a lower baseline happened gradually. No single moment stood out. Nothing felt like a clear decline. So when the baseline starts moving back, there's no obvious reference point. The person isn't returning to something they clearly remember losing. They're just noticing for the first time that things feel different. That gap is the clearest sign of how quietly the brain had been working all along. Until the baseline started moving back, the brain's ability to recalibrate works in both directions. It adjusted downward gradually, and it adjusts upward the same way. Sleep improvements compound into better recovery. Better recovery improves energy output. More stable energy supports clearer thinking and more consistent mood. These systems aren't independent, they feed each other. Research shows that REM rebound the brain's tendency to extend REM sleep after suppression, can last for weeks as natural cycles are restored. Dopamine function improves over time, bringing back motivation and reward sensitivity. And the stress system begins to normalize as the brain rebalances. The compounding effect is what matters. Early changes feel subtle, but over weeks and months, the system begins working together again. Not because something new was added, but because something was removed. The reason most people don't notice what alcohol changes is simple. The brain doesn't announce the shift. It just adjusts, quietly, consistently, in the background. Sleep quality drops, but sleep still happens. Energy declines, but the day still moves forward. Stress increases, but life still feels manageable. Each change is small enough to explain away. Together, they create a new normal. And because that normal builds slowly, it never creates enough contrast to be noticed. That's what makes the reversals so unexpected. Not that things improve, but that the improvement reveals how much had been shifting all along. And that's when you realize how different normal actually feels.